So we are starting Unit 2, which is on tissues. Um, Tissues are an extremely important part of anatomy and physiology. Now, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, for most people, tissues is not the most exciting topic of study. However, it's so important that we learn about them because we know from our last unit that cells make up tissues and that tissues make up organs. And of course, we spend a lot of time looking at the different organs and the organ systems that they are part of. So a tissue is just a group of cells that has a similar structure and then they have a similar common function. Now, histology is how we study these tissues. It's a microscopic study where we study cells and then we study the tissue itself. And then in some cases, we look at the organ that's made up of those tissues. Now, there are two types of histology. One type is normal histology, where we just study normal tissues that have nothing wrong with them. We're just learning more about them. But sometimes our tissues become sick. We have a homeostatic imbalance. And so we have to have those tissues looked at by a doctor. And a doctor who studies diseased tissues is what we call a pathologist. So pathologic histology is the study of diseased tissues. So a pathologist would study these diseased tissues. If you've ever had your tonsils taken out, your gallbladder removed, your appendix removed, when they take those organs from you, they are sent to a pathologist so they can see what the problem is because they shouldn't have had to come out. So they want to make sure that there's not an underlying issue. So they study those tissues and then they release a pathology report to your doctor to tell them what their findings are. So there are four basic types of tissues. We have epithelial tissue, and we'll spend quite a bit of time talking about epithelial because there's a lot of different kinds and we find it in a lot of different places. Connective tissue is several different kinds, but it also encompasses blood, bone, and cartilage. Now, blood, bone, and cartilage we will talk more about at a later date when we study other units, but we will be spending some time looking at other connective tissues. Then the third type is muscle, and the fourth type is nerve. The third and fourth type, muscle and nerve, we will spend a lot of time looking at those later on when we get to those units, but we will briefly touch on them in Unit 2. Now, under each one of these basic types, it's kind of like an umbrella. There are other subdivisions that are different types of epithelial or different types of connective that have a different function that makes them special. The big thing you need to remember is that tissues differ in three things. One would be their cells, the cell's size, the cell's shape, and the cell's arrangement is something that we would look at to determine the type of tissue that we are studying. The kind of intercellular substance, I call this the packing peanuts. What's around the cells holding the cells in place? And then lastly, the tissue's location and its function, what it does. So we will start in our next lecture looking at the types of tissue. I highly suggest that you go back and read the text for Unit 2 and stay on top of studying your notes. There's not a lot of information in this unit, but it can be daunting because there's so many new words. So be sure that you're reading your notes, you're listening to the lectures, you're reading the text, and if you have questions, just shoot me an email. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.